Good morning, Cowboy Jim, Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada. Was outside already. Going to be a nice day, a little bit chilly. I I always sit out and contemplate and ponder and pray a little, talk to the Creator and try to listen. That's the challenging part. Talking is pretty easy, especially for the Irish. And I was thinking of all the people in the Ukraine who had died so far, and thinking about their blood on the streets, and in an effort to protect their country and their way of life, which is their choice. And I was thinking of us here in Canada and the people down in the States. And oh, geez, isn't Biden talking about his one world order and the United States of America will have to lead? I mean, Biden hasn't led anything except straight to the washroom and the ice cream stand. It's, it's truly remarkable. And I thought, well, when was the first mention that's recorded in history? Yes, in Scripture, of the spilling of blood, and what did that mean, and how could we attain unto some level of understanding? How could we make that historical reference to Cain and Abel? How could we draw some benefit from it? And I thought, well, geez, I'm not I'm just not the one to be trying to draw some theological wonderment of the collection of words to help someone understand something when I barely understand myself. And I thought, well, blind leading the blind, I guess, and but nonetheless, I I got my Bible out and I turned back the pages to Genesis, and I reread the story of Cain and Abel, and I tried to ponder the words, the names Cain and Abel, and I couldn't. Well, I could a little, but not much. But Cain was disenchanted with God rejecting his offering, because Cain was a tiller of the land, and he offered God the fruit of the land, plural, fruits of the land, and first harvest, that sort of stuff. And Abel, he 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 tended flocks, sheep, goats, whatnot, and so they both made sacrifices, and God accepted Abel's sacrifice because God had, from the inception of time, indicated, not in Scripture prior to this, but in essence, yes, in Scripture, that the only atonement for sin was with the shedding of blood. It sounds pretty harsh. Well, especially if you were a sheep or a lamb. And but nonetheless. So Cain really got choked with his brother Abel, not because Abel had done anything wrong, and technically Cain really hadn't done anything wrong, except he didn't understand the concept of a sacrificial lamb. Cain didn't seem to recognize that it is only with the shedding of blood that there is atonement made for sin. People, they say, well, geez, I mean, God had his son to die on the cross. Well, let's just think about that for a second. It is only with the shedding of blood that sin can be forgiven. And I guess God could have accepted Cain's offering, but God had a plan. And if we choose to believe anything at all, well, that's up to us. But anyways, I studied this since I was a kid, and with nominal success. Oh, geez, let me tell you. And but it goes on to say that God speaking to Cain, and he said, "Where's your brother?" And Cain says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Well, in essence, he was answering his own question. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. Well, who in the world would be your brother? Well, anyone that doesn't by necessity look like you. I mean, would you like to see a lot of people running around looking like me? No, I wouldn't either. But there is an onus of responsibility that we have when we breathe, when life is spoken in the womb, to our bodies. At some point, I think it's right at the point of inception, we have the fundamental capability as an embryo to grow into something that is distinct, personality in every other sense of the word. So God said, your brother's blood cries out from the ground where it was shed. And that ground, that earth, cried out to God. And God really was not surprised. God has a plan. We don't always understand. We don't have a clue really what that plan is. But Abel, it's interesting. Cain could not please God with his sacrifice because he didn't understand the need for the shedding of blood. Abel was, well, able to present to God a reasonable sacrifice. We're told in Scripture that obedience is better than sacrifice. I can't argue with that. Having raised two sons, I kind of liked for my children, my boys, my sons, who were also my friends, and to be obedient, because through a parent's eyes, you can see quite possibly the problems that a kid could get into, and you try to do everything in your power to help them avoid that horror. And so God accepted Abel's. Cain killed Abel out of jealousy and contempt of life. Contempt of Abel's right to life. Putin is doing something very similar over there in the Ukraine. And the blood of the children and the women and the soldiers and the aged, I believe, is crying out to God. But God did all this so that we would have a choice. We could choose to live for Him, or we could choose to live for ourselves. And we walk in that choice. Cain walked in that choice. The result was he had to work a lot harder for his food. And you say, well, what good was that for Abel? Well, Abel fulfilled a picture for us in history, and Abel went to be with God because his sacrifice was acceptable to God. Cain ended up with a mark on his forehead, which was to be recognized by all those who would kill him for his having killed his brother. And Cain lived in fear, and I don't like fear. I met a nutritionist one time. She did an expose on fear. I don't like fear. I don't want to have anything to do with it because it curtails my ability to smile. My smile may not look that good, but to me it's the best I have. So, the blood of all those children and all those people in the Ukraine cries out to God, and it is on the responsibility of Cain with his brother Abel, but it's also on the responsibility of Putin's responsibility for the shedding of all that blood. But it goes further than that. It goes to Biden's one world order and what that encompasses and where it's going to lead. And I've tried to delineate, hey, I'm a trucker. I'm a real poor rancher. And, the ranch isn't even there anymore. It's gone. Because we are keepers of the land. We're stewards of the land. Our name may be on the deed, as mine was, along with my ex-wife, but do you really own? Do you own? No, you tend to. Okay, let's get a level of significant consideration, to me at least. So, Biden says there is going to be a new world order. I've delineated it. Scripture delineates it. Scripture speaks of it. 4,000 years it's pointed to today or next year, or as many people think 2025 will be the time when the poor of the world will rise up against the rich of the world. Because the poor, as Socrates said, he could predict who was going to be in the next war by how the wealthy behave towards the poor. The poor will come to the place where they say, it's enough already, okay? Too much, actually. That is what is happening in the Ukraine in many ways. The average blue-collar poor, well, they're the ones doing the fighting. Well, over in the Ukraine, it's rather odd because it's also the politicians who are arming themselves to fight for the country. And they say Russia's soldiers aren't doing so good. Well, if you were where you didn't want to be, fighting a foe you were related to, Cain and Abel, would you want to be there? No. And so Putin, he actually has death squads hunting down his soldiers who are deserting. Well, deserting is a dirty little word. I would think that one could use a better explanation, description, and that is that the Russian soldiers are exploring their options. Do you want to die for a politician, or do you want to live and get the hell out of Dodge? Well, a lot of Russian soldiers are doing that, but there are those who revel in hate and anger and malice and torture. And they can be mixed in with both groups, the good, the bad, the ugly. If Biden had wanted to help the Ukraine, he could have. Earlier, I said many times in my videos, Biden, NATO, the countries of the world, they've done too little too late. If they had really wanted the Ukrainian people to succeed, all they had to do was to give them the armament they needed. And that's all. And they still haven't given all the armament that the Ukrainian people believe they need. They're the ones fighting. Reagan, Trump, they supplied armament and let the people who are being invaded do their own blessed fighting. And they do quite well compared to those who are invading, especially if those who are invading don't believe in their cause as the Russians and the Ukraine. People say, well, is Biden going to... Not, he's not going to quit. Is he going to use chemical weapons? Can he use regionalized nuclear bombs? He's going to do anything that he chooses to do because there is no opposition to him other than the Ukrainian people and the pretenders, Biden. The only way that this new world order that is Biden's wonderful expose of what's going to take place in the future is if everything else goes to hell now. That means democracies, that means the economy, that means religious, that means one world government, one world monetary system, one world church, religion. And so we watch and we pretend to pay attention, and that's good. But Biden's game plan's not going to change. He's going to do too little too late because he hopes everything goes to hell. He truly, the Democratic Party in the States, many liberals throughout the world hope that there is the manifestation of the Third World War. If you were in the Ukraine, you would say it's already happening because I think it is. Will Biden change? No. Will the liberal leadership in the world change? No. Trudeau? No. Just pretend you're doing as much as you can, and history will record, especially if the liberals write the history, that they did their best, and the Ukrainians just weren't capable. Well, you want to go over there to the Ukraine and tell an average man who's picked up a gun, may not have used one before, and is fighting for his life, his family, his children, his country, for the things he believes in. You want to tell them, you're not fighting hard enough. Well, they'd tell you to screw off. They would. I would. So, don't you buy this, well, I'd like to say horseshit, but that's not polite, and I'm trying to be polite. I'm not trying to act like a preacher. But if you believe this crap that comes from Biden and the like, you're making a grave mistake. Because as Cain killed Abel and Abel's blood cried out from the very ground, picture that. One man's blood and God and his ability to hear, because we don't understand him hardly at all, heard Abel's blood cry out. Are you hearing the blood of those children, women, children, people of the Ukraine crying out? Will Putin stop? No. Your recourse, my recourse, what is it? Pray. Pray. And pray. Anyways, God bless. I have to go. Don't want to go over 20 minutes. God bless, see? Don't you worry. Oh, it's screwed. Anyways, it's over 20. I'm sorry. We don't understand the politics of the day and the influence of those politics on the people that are being led to slaughter by people who are wealthy, who have a game plan. Joe Biden, New World Order can only come into existence if the old world order goes to hell. God bless you. You pray for the Ukrainian people. Okay? God bless.